Good morning, everyone. We are about to learn Tractate Shabbos, Perek Shmini, the 8th chapter that we started off yesterday. The name of the chapter is Hamotzi Yain. Let's wait a second for our friend David.
Yeah.
David, you there? Oh, good morning, David. Okay, so 87A1. 77A1. Tanina Moitzi Yain Kedem Zigas Akaris, one who carries out wine is liable if he carries out enough to mix a cup with it. That's what we learned in the Mishnah, right? They had strong wine, they needed to dilute the wine, so take a little bit of wine, and then they would add more to it. So one who carries out wine, he has enough to be mixed with water, he will be liable. V'sonia lo, that's obviously taking it from one domain to another domain in place where there's no eruv on Shabbos. Snei alo, and the Baisa was taught in explanation of this Mishnah, kedei mizigas kois enough to mix a nice cup. So what's the difference between kedei mizigas kois, enough to mix a cup with it, or enough to mix a nice cup? The cup used for the blessing after Mizviktoni, Seifal, the latter part of the Mishnah says, Shal Kol HaMashkin B'Revis, and all the other liquids, one is liable only if he takes out Revis. From this we can derive that one is not liable for taking out liquids that are meant to be drunk as is, if they are in amounts of less than a Revis. It follows then that one would only be liable for taking out enough pure wine to mix a cup containing a full revis, 1/4 of a revis, i.e. 1/4 of a revis, you add water to it, and that would make it revis. It can be proven from our Mishnah as well that the cup used for the blessing after meals must contain a 1/4 revis of pure wine. 1/4 revis. So what would be if a revis is 3.1 ounce, a 1/4 of that of pure wine, and that would do it to make you liable. Rava formulated this proof in accordance with his own ruling, issued elsewhere. The Amar Rava, any wine that does not contain 3 parts of water for each 1 part of wine, lav chamo, is not good wine. Since Rava is of the opinion that the correct ratio for dilution of wine is 3:1, he can derive from our Mishnah that one needs a 1/4 revis of pure wine for the cup of blessing. Amar Rava, shtei tshuvas ba'adavo. There are actually 2 replies, 2 rebuttals to this matter. There are 2 reasons why no proof can be brought from our Mishnah that the cup of blessing requires a 1/4 revis of pure wine. Chado, firstly, Rava's opinion as to the ration. The ration of dilution is difficult. How much ratio, how much you have to put in order to dilute the wine. This none. We have learned in the Mishnah in Tractate Nida, V'amozug, and the color of diluted wine, Shnei chelkei mayim ve'echad yain, 2 parts water and 1 part wine. Mina yain hashiroini, from the wine of the Sharon or the Sharon region. Sharon is fertile plain extending along the Mediterranean coast south of Haifa. That's the Sharon. Till this very day, I think it's called the Sharon, this area. V'amozug, and the color of diluted wine, Shnei chelkei mayim ve'echad yain, 2 parts water and 1 part wine. Min hayain hashiroini, from the wine of the Sharon region, the Mishnah would seem to state that the correct ratio of dilution is 2:1, not 3:1 as Rava stated. Ve'oid, and furthermore, the entire premise of the proof that the quarter revis of pure wine is significant, and one is liable for carrying it out solely because it will amount to a revis when combined with water, is flawed. Mayim v'kad u'mitztorfin. For can it be that the water is still in the barrel, and yet it combines to render one who carries out the small amount of pure wine liable? Question mark. Certainly not. Rather, it is more reasonable to assume that one is liable for taking out a small quantity of pure wine simply because a smaller quantity is considered useful, and thus it cannot be proven from the Mishnah that a quarter revis of pure wine is needed for the cup of blessing. Amar le Rava, Rava defends his position. Rava said to Abaye, Odo ko'om al shnei chalkei mayim ve'echad yain min hayayin hashiroini. As for that which you said, that the statement of the Mishnah in Nida, 2 parts water and 1 of wine, from the wine of Sharon, disputes my view concerning proper dilution of wine. This is not so. Why? Yain hasharoini lechud, for the wine of Sharon is an exception to the general rule, the rofe, for it is weak, and thus requires less dilution. Most wines, however, require dilution with 3 parts of water. Inami, alternatively, hoso mishum chazu. So there, in the Mishnah in Nida, the Tana utilizes a 2-to-1 dilution, 2 water, 1 wine, simply with regard to the appearance presented by such a mixture. But to achieve proper taste, additional dilution is required. You see over there in Nida, it speaks about the color of wine, so you can identify wine versus blood.
Right, to decide if she's tummy or...
So, but actually for taste, you probably need more water.
Right.
I don't know if this happens today in winemaking, or that the wine today is less potent than the wine that was then, the actual grapes producing wine. If they actually put in when you buy a bottle of wine, that means that 3/4 of it is water. I don't know.
I don't know either. When I was doing real estate, I went to somebody's houses and they had wine. They were making wine in their house, but of course I couldn't taste it to figure it out because they weren't Jewish. But I never thought of asking them the question.
But maybe they're also diluting their wine.
Yeah.
Daniel would know this. Daniel Benayu. He's what do they call connoisseur?
Yeah, I wonder what he's doing now. You speak to him?
How much wine they actually... No, I haven't spoken to him since, but in today's time, how much wine they actually dilute with water. Or maybe they don't dilute it at all.
No, they have to dilute. I'm sure it's very diluted. Especially, like the Rashi.
I know it goes through fermentation sometimes.
No, but look at the amount of alcohol in like the Rashi wine, and then you look at the...
But there's maybe a different way of taking out the alcohol, not necessarily through adding water.
But like the red wines that I drink have more alcohol content than the Rashi and the...
But again, the process of having less or more alcohol not necessarily has to do with the wine.
I don't know.
With water, adding water to it. Anyway, so in the case of Nida, it's Mishum Chazusa, with regard to the appearance. Aval, at time of Boit Fei, but to achieve taste, additional dilution is required to combat Mayim Bekadum Stofin. As for that which you said, can it be that the water is still in the barrel and yet it combines? Question mark. That too is no difficulty. Le'inyan Shabbos mina dechoshu beinan, with regard to the laws of carrying out on the Shabbos, we require only that the object in question be significant. Va'anami achoshu, and even this small amount of pure wine is significant. because it can be mixed to a form of revis, of mixed wine. Although he did not carry out the water, he is still liable. So it said the difference between Shabbos and Nida. And Nida, the importance is the appearance, how it looks.
Right.
And on Shabbos, what we have in mind is whether it's significant or not. That little wine that you're taking out is significant because the moment you add water to it, you can drink it.
Right.
So Tana Yovish B'Chazai, the Gemara discussed the minimum amount for liability if one carries out wine that has congealed.
Congealed.
You ever seen congealed wine? Wine whose liquid portion has evaporated, leaving behind a solid mess. Although this mess is not usually consumed in its present state, it can be reconstituted and consumed. It can be reconstituted and consumed. These are the words of Rabbi Nosson, that even an olive size, that's already liability. Amar Rabbi Yosef. The rationale for this minimum is that the olive-sized piece of congealed wine is the product of a vis of wine that congealed. Since this amount is significant in liquid form, it is deemed significant in a solid form as well. The Gemara notes that this relationship of a vis in liquid form to an olive size in solid form is found elsewhere as well. Amar Rabbi Nosson, Rabbi Yosef, Rabbi Yehuda, Amru Davar Echad. Rabbi Nosson, Rabbi Yosef, and Rabbi Yehuda said one and the same thing. Both taught that a revis of a substance in liquid form will form an olive-sized solid piece of that substance when it congeals. Rabbi Nosson Odam Moron Rabbi Yosef Rabbi Yehuda the Tanya Rabbi Yehuda Shish Advar Miklu V'Sham Chu B'Sila. There are 6 matters that can be counted among the lenient decisions of Beis Shammai and the stringent decisions of Beis Hillel. The opposite, 6 times. Beis Shammai were more lenient than Beis Hillel. Or Beis Hillel were more stringent than Beis Shammai. Case of Dam Nevelo, the blood of Nevelo. The case over there was, and Nevela is the carcass of an animal that died or that has not been slaughtered in accordance with the procedure mandated by the Torah. The flesh of a Nevela is an Avha Tumah, primary source of Tumah, has the capacity to render Tumah persons or utensils that come into contact with it. The dispute between Beis Shammai and Beis Hillel concerns the status of the blood of the Nevela, and centers upon whether it is accorded the same status as the flesh of the Nevela. So Beis Shammai Metarin, so obviously they're saying that it's not the same as the carcass, as the flesh of the Nevela. Beis Hillel Metarin, Beis Hillel says it's Tameh, the blood of the Nevela, meaning that they're saying that the blood and the flesh are one and the same thing. Beis Hillel are more stringent than Beis Shammai in this case of Dam Nevela. You get it? They're considering the blood and the flesh the same, one and the same.
Right.
And that's why they make it Tomeh. They consider it Tomeh. Rabbi Yosef, Rabbi Yehuda, Rabbi Yosef, the son of Rabbi Yehuda, said concerning this dispute, when Beis Hillel said that the blood is Tomeh, the blood of Nevela is Tomeh, they only said when the blood has revis. Because the blood can congeal and amount to an olive-sized solid piece, and it is therefore Tomeh, just as an olive-sized piece of Nevela flesh. From this Baisa, we see that Rabbi Yossi, the son of Rabbi Yehuda, too, is of the opinion that a revis of a substance in liquid form congeals to form an olive-sized solid piece of that substance. The Gemara objects, maintaining that these rulings of Rabbi Nosson and Rabbi Yossi, the son of Yehuda, are not necessarily independent. Amar Abaye Dilma Loihi. Perhaps it is not so that Rabbi Nosson and Rabbi Yossi, son of Rabbi Yehuda, agree. Ad kan Rabbi Nosson ochi devoy revis. So far, Rabbi Nosson has not said here concerning carrying out on the Shabbos that a revis of liquid is required to form an olive-sized solid. Ela beyain the klish, only concerning wine, which is a thin liquid that loses much of its volume when it congeals. But regarding blood, which is thick, it is possible that Rabbi Nosson disagreed with Rabbi Yossi, the son of Rabbi Yehuda, and ruled to produce an olive-sized piece, one would not require a vis of blood. Inami, alternatively, also, so far, Rabbi Yossi, the son of Rabbi Yehuda, has not said there concerning Tumas Nevelo, the Chazai Sagi Lever Vis, that to form an olive-sized piece of a substance, it is sufficient to have a revis of liquid, ela bedam desmich, only concerning blood, which is thick, and will not lose much of its volume when it congeals. Aval yain the klish, regarding wine which is thin, kazais Rabbi Yossi revis, is it possible that Rabbi Yossi, the son of Rabbi Yehuda, would hold that an olive-sized piece of congealed wine originally was more than a revis of wine. And thus he would rule that even one who takes out less than an olive-sized piece is liable. There is no proof that Rabbi Nosson and Rabbi Yossi, the son of Rabbi Yehuda, share the same opinion.
Did anybody ever do it in Mamaisa Papel? I mean, actually take the stuff and check it out.
Yeah, I'm sure they did.
Okay.
Question about the liability, if you're liable or not. The fact
I
that
mean, I know about walking
blood
around
congeals,
shopping,
so
but I'm saying, let's say on a regular day, you test it out to see what.
What do you want to test? If the blood congeals, we know it congeals.
We know the blood congeals, and we know the wine could congeal, but we want to know if the wine.
They congeals differently.
No, we know. We also know that.
Right.
That's pshita, obvious.
No, one it contracts, one expands. One maintains. One is thick, and one is thin.
Okay, we're saying here the blood is thick.
Thick, and wine is thin.
Is thin.
So maybe you would need more of wine in order to be liable. You need to take more of congealed wine in order to be liable, since it contracts.
Okay.
Cholov kedegmio, it takes if he takes out milk enough for a swallow.
Right.
The Gemara discusses the proper spelling of the word gemia. Gimel mem yud ein hey. Ibalehu kedei gemia. It should have been, I guess, written with an aleph instead of ein. Gemia. Or kedei gemia. Or it's written correctly with an ein. Amar v'nach b'yitzchak gemini nomi ma'at ma'mikadech. It says regarding Eliezer, asking Rivka, that the servant of Avram, you tell her, give me some water from your jar, from your jug. So, and over there it's written with an aleph. So maybe the Gemara should have written the word gemia with an aleph. They inquired, Gre'inin or Gar'inin. A similar question can be asked about whether we say gar'inin with an ayin or with an aleph. Shells, pits. Amar gar'inin. So Amar Avahula v'nigar merkecho. When it says v'nigar merkecho, it should be deducted from your valuation. It should be deducted from the valuation. The word v'nigra, spelled with an ayin, connotes deduction. Similarly, the word for pit, which is deducted from the edible mess, the edible food of the food, should also be written with gar'in with an ayin, like the pit, the sid, the seed, right? This is referring to the coals. The coals that have been partially extinguished but they're still glowing. Do I write them with an aleph or with an ayin? Amar Yitzchak bar oimimos or oimimos. Amar Yitzchak bar Avdimi arozim lamu began elokim. So there's a pasuk that says cedars will not dim his splendor in the garden of Hashem. So we see from here that oimimos should be written with an ayin. Ibailu me'amtzin tanan or me'amtzin with an aleph or with an ayin. This is regarding the one may not close the eyes of a deceased person on the Shabbos. Right? I think the Chava Kadisha, I think someone passed away with open eyes, they close his eyes.
Except on Shabbos.
Right, so it says me'amtzin or with an aleph or with an ayin. Me'amtzin. Rabbi said in the name of Yechonon, the pasuk states, in one who averts his eyes from seeing evil. The word ve'oitzem, spelled with an ayin, means to avert the eyes. Similarly, in that Mishnah, the word me'amtzin should be spelled with an ayin. The Mishnah stated the minimum amount for milk is enough for a swallow. The Gemara cites a brisa of that qualifies this ruling. If one takes out the milk of an animal, kedei gemia, enough for a swallow. Cholov shalisho, the milk of a woman, human milk, v'lovin shel beitza, or the white of a raw egg. Or the white of a raw egg, he is liable if he takes out enough to put into an application of kilo ointment. Kilo, if he takes out kilo, he is liable if he takes out enough to mix it with water. Enough mixed kilo to apply to the eyes. Or must there be enough to hold the kilo in one's fingers and apply therefrom to the eyes? The Gemara says no answer to this question. Teiku. Tvash is honey enough to place on a sore. Tana kedelit alpikos is enough to place on the head of a sore, which is a wound. When the Brisa states that one must take out enough honey to place on the head of a sore, does it mean on the face of the entire sore? Or perhaps it means enough to place upon the highest point, the tip of the sore. And it means to exclude the area all around the tip of the sore, which is not included in the calculation. The Gemara ends off with Teiku. Amar Rabbi Yehuda Amar Rav. Rabbi Yehuda said in the name of Rav, all that Hashem has created in His word, He did not create even one thing needlessly. He created the slug as a remedy for a sore. He created the fly for the sting of a hornet.
The cure for the sting of a hornet.
Yeah, he created the fly to serve as a cure for the sting of a hornet. Interesting. Let's see number 19. It says, one crushes the fly and places it upon the place of the sting.
Never heard that before.
Yeah. Yatush l'nochosh, the net provides a cure for the bite of a snake. Did you hear that before?
No.
But you learned Shabbos before.
Yeah. Well, all right. So I didn't remember. It was 7 years ago.
The second time.
Actually, probably learned it more, but I mean, you learn every time you learn the same thing. You learn over and over. You keep getting something new.
The nochosh lechafofis and a snake can be used as a cure for certain types of boils. Usmomis laakov, and a spider provides cure for the sting of a scorpion. Even creatures which are seemingly purposeless serve as valuable remedies. Because you think, why would Hashem create snakes? Why would Hashem create nets? Why would Hashem create scorpions? How is this cure effected? He brings one black snake, which is a garden snake, and white one. See a white snake?
Yeah.
Visholkilu, and he cooks them.
Okay.
Wuhan. You're going back to Wuhan.
No, but this one they're not eating it.
I know. I'm joking. Vishoifilei, and he rubs the site of the boil with it, the mixture. Gemara cites a brayso that mentions several of the insects discussed by Rabbi Yehuda. Tanu Rabban.
This is a good bust.
Rabbis taught in a brayso chamisho emus hein. There are 5 instances of fears.
Yeah.
Emas chalash al giber. The fear of the weak is upon the strong.
Fear.
They meant the fear of the weak because of the due to the strong, right?
We're afraid of the strong.
Exactly.
This way sounds like the strong are afraid of the weak.
Yeah, but
Okay, and the way the English, I don't know, doesn't work so good. Like
maybe that's what they mean, that the strong fears the weak. The fear of the weak is upon the strong. They say never underestimate your opponent, no?
yeah, Goliath found that out the hard way.
No, Goliath came pretty equipped. He came with the armor and everything.
Yeah, but he thought that whatever.
He did undermine. He did undermine him, but. Hello.
Hi.
Okay, let's see.
Rimas in the Pagua. Where do they say these things?
Eimas mafgia al ari, the fear of the mafgia upon the lion. It says in 24, the mafgia is a small beast that has an exceedingly powerful cry. When the mafgia screams, the lion fears that a great beast is coming to challenge him, and he flees. So it just has a strong voice. Who state that the mafgia is a small, very agile animal with razor-sharp claws. It will jump onto the head of a lion and kill it by piercing its cranium. Cranium.
The skull
with its claws. Say this, cranium with its claws, all the while avoiding the lion's attempts to crush it. He writes further that the nobles of his time would often sport with these animals by pitting them against lions. Wow.
That doesn't sound nice. But you ever notice a little dog, right? A Chihuahua, these little yapper dogs, they'll go against a big dog like a Doberman, and the Doberman will, what's going on here? All right.
So, Amos Yatu shall appeal the fear of the net upon the elephant. It says in 25, the net enters the trunk of the elephant, and the elephant cannot dislodge it.
Yeah. Titus had the same thing.
Yeah, Titus. Amos Momis Alakov, the fear of the spider upon the scorpion. It says in 26, the spider enters the body of the scorpion via its ear, and the scorpion is powerless to dislodge it. Amos Nun Sanasha, the fear of the sallow swallow upon the eagle. So it says, the swallow enters beneath the wings of the eagle, and once ensconced there, prevents the eagle from spreading its wings. Wow, look at that. Emas kilbis alivyosin, the fear of the kilbis upon the livyosin. What's the kilbis? It says in 28, the kilbis is small creeping creatures that kills larger fish by burrowing into their ears. So it says, Rashi to Basra 73, Dibra Malche Berusia, who states that kilbis burrows into the nostrils of the fish. The Livyosin, a great sea creature of which only 2 were created, feels the tiny kilbis. Gemara cites this brisa to show that aside from the medicinal uses mentioned by Rabbi Yehuda, all creatures can be used as instruments of God to exact retribution from the wicked, even if they appear to be insignificant creation of no purpose. A person should never arrogantly assume that his power is such that he cannot be punished, for God summoned even the lowliest of creatures to triumph over him.
Yeah, today we should understand that more than ever.
Yeah, I guess with a tiny little virus can stop the whole world.
The whole world is stopped. Or she'll stop the whole thing. Mashiach now.
Yeah.
Right, David? Is he still there?
Yeah, David is with you.
Okay.
Amav Amarav Maikra Mavlig Shir al Oz. Mavlig Shoid al Oz. Speaking about the relationship in nature, it says, he who causes the weak to triumph over the powerful. The prophet extols the awesome power of God. Rabbi Zera once encountered Rabbi Yehuda as he was standing at the door of his father-in-law's house. Zera saw that Rabbi Yehuda was in a light-hearted mood. And if he were to ask him about anything in the world, Rabbi Yehuda would tell him. So it was a good opportune time to ask Rabbi Yehuda any question. Rabbi Zera therefore began to question Rabbi Yehuda regarding several natural phenomena that he had observed. We learned it in Chassidus, this concept.
Right.
So what is the reason that goats always walk at the front of the flock? Take goats and sheep, goats will be leading the flock. When the sheep follow after them. Imre is the sheep. This order follows the order established by the creation of the world. First, there was darkness, because goats are dark, and only afterwards there was light. I guess there's also white goats, but similarly, the generally dark-colored goats walk before the lighter-colored sheep. What is the reason that the hindquarters of these sheep are covered by a tail, while the hindquarters of these goats are exposed? The tush of the sheep you don't see because it's covered by a fatty tail, and you can see the tush of the goat.
I never paid attention.
One is covered, one is not covered. So he answered them, Hani demechasinan minayu. These sheep, since we cover ourselves with clothing made of wool, sheared from them, mikasyan, they are covered. And goats, since we do not cover ourselves with their shearings, migalian, they are exposed. What is the reason that a camel has a small tail? Rabbi Yehuda replied, because it eats thorns, and its tail is short that it does not become entangled in the thorns as it stands and eats. If he had a long tail, his tail would get stuck in the thorns. Rabbi Zera asks further, what is the reason that an ox has such a long tail? Maybe you can use it for cholent.
Yeah.
Ox tail.
Yeah.
So Rabbi Yehuda answered, Mishum the doyer ba'agami, because it dwells in the swamplands. It requires the long tail to chase away the nets. Rabbi Zera then asks, "My time account the comes to Richicha. What is the reason that the horns? What is it? Antennae?
Antenna,
Yeah, of a locust are soft and flexible. Mishum dedayer bechilfa, because it dwells among willows, which are stiff and unyielding. Veikashu, and if the antennae were rigid, nadium is avo, they would be dislodged when the locust strikes the willows, and the locust would be blinded. He who wishes to blind the locust, should remove its antennae.
Good luck with that.
We see that a locust depends upon its antennae to see. Another question Rabbi Zera is asking Rabbi Yehuda, what is the reason that the lower eyelid of a rooster raises up and closes over the upper eyelid? The lower closes over the upper. Unlike all other animals, where the upper eyelid closes over the lower one. Rabbi Yehuda answered, the doira adapi, because it dwells on boards and beams, and smoke is often present in its habitat. Viol kuto, and if smoke were able to go up into his eyes, misavo, he would be blinded. Therefore, the lower eyelids close over the upper ones, so that the rising smoke cannot penetrate. Rabbi Zeira continued his inquiries by asking Rabbi Yehuda the meaning of the names of various common items. Rabbi Yehuda explained each name as a contraction of that item's function or physical makeup. Dasho, why is a door called a dasho? So the answer is derech shom, because the way to the house is derech sham, is through the door. Dago, why is the ladder called dago? So he wrote derech gad, because the way to the roof is through the ladder. Maskuliso, and why is a dipping sauce called maskuliso? He answered them because it means it's a one long word that breaks into three. Mosai tichledo, because those who eat it wonder, when will this be finished? I guess they don't want to eat it, beso, or they like it too much. Why is the house called beso? Because it proclaims to its dwellers, come and sit in it. Bikso. Why is a cramped house called bikta? Be'akoto, because it is narrow, small place. Kufta, why is a mortar called kufta? Koif v'siv, tip it over and sit. Livnei, why are bricks called livnei vnei? Because they endure for one's children's children. They last for the grandchildren. Hutza, why is it thatched fence called hutza? Chatzitza, because it is a mere partition. Chatzba, why is a barrel called chatzba? Shechoitzev mayim min ha'ar, because it mines water from the river. Kuza, why is it a small earthen jar called kuza? Koza, because it is just a tiny bit like this. Koze. Shutiso, why is a myrtle branch called shutiso? And also shtusa, because one who dances with it looks like a fool. Mishichlo, why is there a washing trough called Mishichlo? Moshe Kula, because it washes all. Mashchiliso, why is an ornate washing pitcher called Mashchilisa? Mashio Chalosa, for this bride washes with it. Osiso, why is a hand mortar called Asiso? Chasiroso, for it is lacking. Buchno, why is a peso called a buchna? Bovakane, because it calls, come and I will strike. Rabbi Zera inquired about the names of items of clothing, levusha. Levusha, it says loy busha. You wear it, you have no embarrassment. Gelima, covers your body. Gelima, why is an overcoat called gelima? Shenasa b'kigelim, because one who is wearing it is made to look like a shapeless form. Gulso, why is a fine cape called gulso? Galeveisi, because one reveals himself by folding it up before he sits. Puya, why is a bed called puya? Sheporin verovin oleo, because people are fruitful and multiply upon it. Boyer zinko, why is a dried out water pit called boyer zinko, boyer zenoki, to say that this pit is empty. Sudra, head warp worn by the rabbis called sudra, because Seid Hashem leireh, of the secrets of Hashem are revealed to those who fear Him. Apadno, why is a palace called Apadno? Pischodein, for it is to this door that all must come. Tanu Rabbanu Shloisho Kozman Shemaskifin Maskin Moisim Masivin Gevua. There are three creatures that as they age they become stronger. Ve'elu Hain, and these are they. Dog v'nochash v'chazir, fish as he gets older gets stronger. Snake and the swine. The older it gets, the stronger it is. Though most creatures weaken as they age, these three are the exception to the rule. They become stronger as they grow older. Maybe we should eat more fish, so we get older, we get stronger. Maybe we'll inherit the same attributes. Huh?
Yeah, sounds good. But you want to eat older fish, but I don't know if we're going to eat older fish.
Shemen gedolos of cotton oil enough to anoint a small limb. Amway Rabbi Yana Shemen gedolos of cotton shel cotton bin yema. The minimum measurement of oil is enough to anoint the small limb of a day-old infant. Meisivei. They challenged this from the following baita. It says it's enough to carry it from one place to another when it comes to oil. Ever cotton, even a small limb. So they challenged it. Meitivei shemen kederosu ever cotton. The cotton ben yomer, enough to anoint a small limb, and a day-old infant, my love. Does this bicep not mean to state ever cotton the godel? A small limb of an adult, ever godel shel cotton ben yomer, or a large limb of a day-old infant. This is considerably more than the amount suggested by the scholars of Rabbi Yanai's academy. The scholars of Rabbi Yanai academy would say to you, Loi. The meaning of the Baisa is not, as you suggest, Achikomo. This is what the Baisa is saying. Shemen, if he takes out oil, he's liable only if he takes out enough to anoint a small limb of a small child, and a small child is a day-old infant. Lema Kesanoishu, we say that the definition of a small limb is a dispute between Tanoim. For another Baita stage, Shemen, if he takes out oil, he is liable only if he takes out enough to anoint a small limb, and a day-old infant. V'div Rabbi Shimon Lozo. These are the words of Rabbi Shimon Lozo. Enough to anoint a small limb. Is it not this very issue that they dispute? Rabbi Shimon Lozo Sova Cotton Shel Cotton. For Rabbi Shimon Lozo hold that the amount of oil required is enough to anoint a small limb of an infant. Rabbi Nosson Sova. Rabbi Nosson hold Ever Cotton the Godel the Cotton. That enough oil is required to anoint either a small limb of an adult or a large limb of an infant. But oil to anoint a small limb of a day-old infant is not sufficient. If this is so, the view of the scholars of Rabbi Yanai Academy is that Rabbi Shimon ben Lozo, and it is disputed by Rabbi Nosson. The Gemara argues that this interpretation of the Brisa is not necessarily correct. Loi, this interpretation is not compelling the Chulam ever cotton the cotton binyamin loi. It is possible that everyone agrees that one who takes out enough oil to anoint a small limb of a day-old infant is not liable. Leisa de Rabbi Yanai, and the opinion of the scholars of Rabbi Yanai's academy is not held by either Tana. We'll continue, God willing, tomorrow. We'll have a short. Let's learn the Shulchan Aruch.
Won't be cooked out enough to do the sota tonight. Let's see, where were we holding yesterday?
Nun Ches, Noach, Beged Ashor B'Mayim. So we're learning out the Rebbe Shulchan Aruch when a garment, laws of Shabbos, when a garment is soaked with water, even if only slightly soaked with water. It's a wet garment. It is forbidden to dry it. Don't put it close to the fire. Even if it does not, spread it out there. Don't put it there. But merely dries it there while he is wearing it. So you're putting it on yourself and you come standing next to the fire, so it should dry it. In that instance, there is no prohibition because of the impression that it could be created. There's no prohibition because of the impression that it could be created. Nevertheless, because nobody would figure out, you're standing next to the fire. They don't know you. You're warming yourself up. They don't know you're really trying to dry your clothes. Nevertheless, doing so is forbidden because of the prohibition against cooking. The water absorbed in the garment will cook. Parentheses will cook. If one is so close to the fire that the garment will become so warm that a hand would recoil from touching it. Yad soy lettuce boy, the hand will recoil from it. If the person is not so close to the fire that the garment could become so hot that the hand would recoil, he may dry the garment there as long as he does not spread it out. Buchim Tiyu. Continue, God willing, tomorrow.
Let's say you come out, not, or you're in New York in a cold